Hey, Irish fans, happy Thanksgiving and welcome to Chalk Talk with Bill and Bill, brought to you by Guinness. I'm Mike Sullivan from the Notre Dame Alumni Association, and we're so happy that you joined us here today for a great expert analysis of the upcoming game between the Fighting Irish and North Carolina. Joining me as always, two former Notre Dame coaching assistants, Bill Reagan and Bill Lewis, who collectively have over 60 years of college and professional football coaching experience. They're here today to give you their expert analysis on what it will take for the Irish to secure victory number 9. We're going to get things started with Bill Reagan, who will give you a look into North Carolina's defense and the challenges that they'll present to Ian Book and the Irish offense. So, Bill, take it away.
Thanks, Mike. And welcome everyone out there to another edition of Bill and Bill Chalk Talk. This is the kind of game we look to, right? This is the game that kind of games we all hope for, that in November you can have meaningful games. In this case, not only meaningful in the national scope, but also very meaningful for the conference championship game. So this is a big game, and as big for North Carolina as it is for Notre Dame, sitting there at 6-2. So let's take a look at the ACC, how it stands right now, and the teams Notre Dame has played and beaten, and the teams they have yet to play. So the teams they have yet to play are in red. The teams they've already played are in blue, and this is the first half of the ACC. You see North Carolina just sitting outside there, hoping to get a shot at the top, hoping to get a shot at the conference championship game. And then, of course, here's the bottom set of teams, the majority of which Notre Dame has already played and defeated. If we look at the Tar Heel schedule so far, there are a couple common opponents with Notre Dame. They started off, beat Syracuse rather handily. Then they played Boston College in a game that I watched, and it was a hard-fought, close game. Virginia Tech, they beat in a shootout, 56-45. Lost to Florida State, which is interesting to me in that they would slip up to Florida State. So a couple of mysteries here. They go along and beat a good North Carolina State team, and then again they lose to Virginia 44-41, not one of the top teams in the league. Come back and beat Duke rather handily, where it looked like they were scoring every series, or that they were going to score every series. And then last week's game with Wake Forest, which was an amazing football game, back and forth, especially in the second half, where North Carolina actually comes from way behind to take over the lead and win the game. So let's look at a little history with the Irish. North Carolina is not a team that Notre Dame plays very often right now in our modern era, but the first meeting took place in 1949 at Yankee Stadium with an Irish victory and an eventual national championship for the Irish. It's interesting that first game was at a neutral site in Yankee Stadium. They've played 20 times all told since then, and the Irish are on top 8-2. I think when they started the series in 1949, it looked like they were going to play almost every year. So they faced off every year in the 50s, except for 1957. So from 49 to 60, they played 10 times. 1962 was an interesting contest in that it was the smallest crowd at Notre Dame since 1943, when a couple of the crowds were in the 20,000s. And so not a lot of interest was generated from Notre Dame playing North Carolina. Ara Parrison faced UNC 3 times. The Tar Heels never scored a point against Ara Parrison and one of his football teams. 1975 may have been the most interesting game. Notre Dame trailing 14-6. This was the first game that Joe Montana came in the second half and engineered one of his many comebacks, completing a game-winning 80-yard touchdown pass to Ted Bergmeyer with just over a minute left to secure a 21-14 victory. So again, probably Notre Dame a little unsuspecting of North Carolina. Notre Dame had usually beaten them, and they needed Joe to do what he does and come back and win that game. So for the North Carolina themselves and their history, the first year of football is 1888, so they go back quite a while. And interestingly, they are credited with the very first forward pass. In some books, this has been documented. In fact, John Heisman wrote a book 30 years after this happened and has it in print there that on a punt with North Carolina tied with Georgia at the time 0-0 late in the game, the punter dashes to his right, throws a pass, and it's caught for a 70-yard touchdown. They win 6-0. So Notre Dame may have popularized the forward pass, but Notre Dame, at least, or at UNC, at least they can claim to have thrown the very first forward pass in 1895. The football program in North Carolina has long been overshadowed. I think everyone knows this, by the men's basketball program there. An historic basketball program, still to this day up in the top 10 best teams every year. But the football program has been battling to get there. And that's probably why Mack Brown left the first time, came back. I think he sees the positives there and what can get done. So they've been a mediocre football program since 1888, right? They've had a few good years, and here's 10 of them from 1898 to 2015 and their records in those years. But not a lot of great football there. I've had 3 or 4 ACC championships or divisional championships, but they've really played mostly out east. So they haven't become a national caliber team or known very much for their success nationwide. They have had some great players: Charlie Justice, Chris Hanberger, Don McCauley, Jeff Saturday, Julius Peppers, Akeem Nicks. And Mitch Trubisky, well, they put that there. I put a question mark behind that. They joined the ACC in 1953. The Tar Heels sitting right now just out of the UPI and AP top 25. They're the very next team getting votes in both categories. So a victory over Notre Dame would do a huge boost for them as far as the polls are concerned. Mack Brown is the active coach in the NCAA of all coaches with the most victories. He's also number 1 at UNC in victories if you combine his previous stint there with his current regime. They do have 2 sets of brothers on the team, interesting, the Foxes and the Browns. So for some Irish news, notes, and nuggets, it came out this week, 14 years in a row, Notre Dame has posted the top graduation success rate figure for all student athletes. So this is what it's all about, right? Notre Dame's graduating their student athletes, and they're having a great education doing it. Coach Kelly won his 100th game last week with the win over Boston College. And at that point, I believe he's tied with Lou Holtz and trails only Newt Rockne. Ian Book returns to the site of his very first start for Notre Dame when he takes the field at North Carolina this week. And don't forget, it's a Friday game as well. Game is 3:30 Friday afternoon. The UNC athletic director is a Notre Dame graduate and longtime administrator there, Bubba Cunningham. He was an associate AD for many years, ticket manager at Notre Dame, and now has worked his way up to the athletic director's position at North Carolina. Look at the Tar Heel defense. So the Tar Heel defense is doing it a little bit with mirrors, okay? They are very young on defense, at times playing 5 freshmen. In fact, in the game versus Wake Forest last week, where I mentioned North Carolina had to come from way behind, I think they were 21 points down in the second half. So they not only had to score 21 points, they had to get the ball back from Wake Forest. And Mack Brown looked out on the field at one point in the second half and saw 5 freshmen playing for him, and he was about to tell the defensive coordinator, hey, this is not the time and place to have these young freshmen on the field. Let's get them out of there. And he's so glad he didn't, because as it turned out, the freshmen were some of the guys making plays, big plays, to get the ball back for the Tar Heel offense. They have co-defensive coordinators, Jay Bateman, who is the secondaries coach, and Tommy Thigpen. I really think that Jay Bateman is the architect of the defense. A lot of that, what you see there, is what he did as the defensive coordinator at Army. They utilize a multiple defensive front scheme, 3-4, 4-3, and they against Boston College, they were mainly 3-4. Against Virginia Tech, they're mainly 4-3. I expect that Notre Dame will see a lot of both. And I'll show you in a minute here the way they mixed it up. They have opted for speed over brawn, relying with really speedy linebackers. Very impressed with their linebackers and how they run. And we'll talk more about one in particular here in a minute. But very fast defense. And I think, they're trying to cover up for not having a lot of great defensive linemen or young defensive linemen. And so they've put the speed into their linebacker core, and yet they've got to get them to the point of attack. The philosophy for building pressure, when they want pressure on a quarterback, they're using 4 defenders as rush people most of the time. Now, that's not odd, right? If you've got 4 down linemen who can really rush the quarterback, you're going to play pass coverage and just let them do their work. Well, they don't have 4 defensive linemen who can supply that rush. So what they're doing is they're mixing it up by trying to cause confusion and bring a secondary person, or you'll see them bring a corner, especially when the ball is into the boundary. If that corner is in press coverage, watch to see if he comes at the quarterback. The other thing is linebackers. They're bringing as many linebackers, not a bunch of them at one time, but different linebackers at different times to supply their pass rush. And again, we'll show you a little bit about that here in a second. So here's how they rank defensively in the ACC. It's not great, and we've seen them improve from week to week as well. But if you look at points surrendered, they're 8th. And over here on the right, I have Notre Dame's positioning here in the opposite category. So in terms of points scored, Notre Dame is 4th. And Notre Dame is averaging 39 points, and they're giving up 31 points. So yards surrendered, they're 7th at 413 per game. And rushing defense, they're 5th. So a little bit better there at 152 per game, but Notre Dame's 3rd and getting 234 a game. Pass defense, they're down there at 10th, but then Notre Dame's pass offense is 9th. So, and similar with the sacks, they're 5th in getting sacks with 27, and Notre Dame's 4th in permitting sacks at only 15. Here's one of the players I want you to really take a look at, Chaz Surratt. Chaz is on every not only preseason, but season watch list. And when I say everyone, I mean for linebackers, we're looking at the Bednarik, the Butkus, the Nagurski, the Lott, the Senior Bowl watch list. He's a CBS all preseason All-American. He's on everybody's All-American preseason list. And interestingly, he came to North Carolina as a quarterback, wearing number 12, left-handed quarterback. And after, I believe, his freshman year, he just thought it over and thought maybe a position change was in order for him. He hadn't really played defense since freshman in high school. You can see, and I'm glad I found this particular picture, how lean he is. He is one lean guy at playing linebacker. He's 6'2", 225, so that's not tiny by any means, but he is fast. As his other inside linebacker mate, Jeremiah Gemmel at 6'1", 225. These guys are fast. When you see them blitz, you'll see them come from a delayed perspective or from an off gap, or they swing around and come up through a gap, and they're just sprinting. Okay, that's their method for getting to the quarterback. But Chaz is a good one. He'll sometimes line up a defensive end. They'll bring him off the edge. But interestingly to me, too, for a guy who hasn't played a lot of defense in his career, when he tackles soundly and he tackles hard. So other players to watch would be the 5 freshmen. You want to take a good look at them and see how much they play. So at nose tackle, number 98, Kevin Hester. At defensive tackle, number 88, Miles Murphy. An outside linebacker, number 10, Desmond Evans, 6'6", 245. He's hard to miss. Strong safety, number 3, Cameron Roseman Sinclair. And then at cornerback, number 20, Tony Grimes. Not a real big guy, but they put him in at the end of the Wake Forest game to shut down a receiver, and he did just that. He's not only just a freshman, he should only be a senior in high school. So he's one of these guys that opted out for his senior year, similar to JT Daniels a couple of years ago at Southern California, and came as for what should be his senior year of high school. So look to see how much Tony Grimes will play, because he has played well, okay? And as I mentioned, all 5 of these guys were on the field at the end of the game for the Wake Forest game a week ago. So here's the 3-4 look that they'll line up in a lot of the time. So you'll see these outside backers, or maybe even a nickel, up on the line of scrimmage. Kind of looks like the old 5-2. They'll play a variety of coverage. This shows quarters coverage here, but they'll play a variety of coverages out of this 3-4. And they don't sit much in the 3-4. They will angle the front. Sometimes they bring nobody. They just angle the front one way or slant it the other. What they like to do, as I mentioned, is kind of disguise and bring people. So here's a look out of the 3-4. And this is a fire zone blitz. One of the things kind of popularized by the Steelers several years ago, and where they're going to bring 5 rush guys. So 5 is a good number to bring, right? It's kind of safe. And they would play zone coverage behind it. The quarterbacks can sometimes get caught by a guy dropping into a zone that he didn't think would be there. But what I believe Jay Bateman doesn't like about the zone drop is that there are really a lot of openings in it. You can play 3 deep, 3 under, which is what we have here. We have this strong safety in the seam to curl gap, this outside backer drop into the middle curl, and this call it a rover, call it a will, out in the seam to flat. So you've got 3 under, and you've got 3 guys going deep, the corners and the free safety with the 3 deep. So you're okay in the middle deep, right? 3 deep, but you're kind of giving up a lot of open spots in this 3 under look. So what Coach Bateman likes to do is, out of this same exact look, not bring, okay, if you're looking at this strong safety, or excuse me, the Sam backer over here, instead of bringing him as a 5th guy, dropping him into coverage so that you have 4 under and 3 deep, a little safer look, and you're still causing some confusion when you're coming at the offensive line. And I really believe they're going to try to cause confusion for the center this week with Parrison out, and whoever that is playing in there, they're going to try to confuse him. So here you have a nose going to his right. He could pick him up, but they're also bringing outside end into the A gap and taking that Mike backer and flying him into the B gap. Not really sound out here because they're giving up the outside, hoping that Mike can come through clean, okay? Also in the 3-4 look, they can play man. And again, he wants to bring 4 guys, not 5, not 6. He wants to make it look like he could be bringing 5 or 6, but only bring 4. So safe but confusing rush where he can still have everyone else in coverage. This particular one here shows man-to-man coverage and still only bringing 4 guys. And you've got what we used to call a snake blitz on the center, with the nose going one way and an off backer from the side that the nose is going to the other A gap, okay? Hoping that this guard has his head turned, maybe looking to the outside and getting that will backer straight through there, okay? Now, in this case, they are bringing 5, but you could have this backer just sit there and play man coverage, and they could drop into 2 deep, 5 under. And again, they want to bring 4, not 5. They'll also run a base 4-3 look, and in that base 4-3, you could have, again, a multitude of coverages. This shows quarter, half. They could play true 2 deep coverage out of it with the corners sitting and making sure those outside receivers take an inside release. everyone else playing the curl areas underneath. So you had a 5 under 2 deep, or you play this quarter, half, or quarters like the slide before. Again, what they want to do is see this Mike backer here, right here. They want to walk him up right over the center. Again, this is going to be one of those things to try to cause confusion with the center. And so here I've drawn up just a 4-man rush, but 2 of them are linebackers. The other 2 are down linemen, dropping both ends into 2 deep, 5 under coverage. So again, I want to emphasize this point. If you're watching the defense and you watch 21 and 44, they'll be doing a lot of the blitzing. Watch where they're coming from, okay? Now, they will also take that Mike backer and walk him up there and just show blitz too. They might back him off, bring one of these ends, and still bring that Will backer. So there's a multitude of combinations, a multitude of coverages. But again, the interesting thing to me is he doesn't want to bring 5. He wants to bring 4, try to catch your head looking the other way, try to confuse you while having fairly safe coverage underneath. Traditional 2 deep, 5 under, or 3 deep, 4 under coverages. So those are kind of my takeaways looking at the North Carolina defense. The guy who's got a lot to tell you is Bill Lewis, because their offense is explosive. And their quarterback is playing exceptionally well right now, a big reason why they're 6-2. So I will turn it over to Bill Lewis. But before I do, I want to say have a very happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe. And don't forget, if they could do it 102 years ago, you can do it now. Wear a mask. Thanks, and over to Bill.
Thanks, Mike and Bill, and welcome to Chalk Talk. If you've been with us in the past, I've mentioned several times that statistics tell a story. So let's take a look at the story that the North Carolina statistics present at this point in the season. These are the last 4 games, and these are the games that I used in breaking down. And you'll see that they lost one of these 4 games, 44-41 to Virginia. Also, their other loss of the season was a 3-point loss to Florida State. Other than that, they've kind of dominated with the offensive numbers. And this was the last game, a 59-53 victory over Wake Forest. What's significant about that? We play North Carolina, then we've got a game against Syracuse, and then we finish the season with a game against Wake Forest. So there's going to be a challenge for our defense in the weeks to come. Again, North Carolina, 51 points a game. Their opponents, 36 points. Now, I want to take a look at the numbers from last week's game against Wake Forest, and just to point out a couple things. In the rushing game, you see that both teams were over 200 yards. North Carolina's the blue, and Wake Forest is the black number here. They also had Carolina scored 2 rushing touchdowns, Wake Forest 3. When you go to the passing game, both of them attempted 45 passes. Carolina completing 32, Wake Forest 29. But look at the yardage out here. North Carolina, 550 yards of passing offense, 6 touchdowns. And then, Wake Forest was there, 400. We'll deal with that in a couple of weeks. From a reception standpoint, there were 32 receptions in the game for the 500 yards and so forth. Now, when you come down here, these numbers are staggering. North Carolina's total offense was 763 yards, and they had 8 touchdowns. Unfortunately, there was a lot of offense on the other side of the ball. But again, the final score, North Carolina 59, Wake Forest 53. On the broadcast or the telecast of the game, they mentioned that never in the history of college football had a game end at 59-53. I have to just kind of agree with that. All right, now let's take a look at their rushing team. What is so significant here is they have 2 running backs that right now this season, the blue numbers are this year, the red numbers are last year. Right now, you've got 2 backs that are rushing for over 100 yards. Number 25 is their power back, all right? Number 8 is their speed back. He will run over you. He will run away from you. But again, as you look at these numbers, 7.2 yards a carry, 7.2 yards a carry this year. And then again, you look at their numbers from last year. So this is something that they have been consistent with these two backs from the outset. Their quarterback, and what I do is I subtract the negative yardage from sacks away from this. He averages 4.4 yards a carry. He's got 3 touchdowns. His 20-yard run was last week against Wake Forest for a touchdown. He will run the ball on occasions when they feel like it's important that people are kind of ignoring him in their option game. All right. Again, as you come down here, their numbers of 6.39 per rush is outstanding. They've had a long of 62, and again, they're averaging 250 yards a game rushing. Now, as we go into the passing part of it, let me mention that if we go back to the beginning of last year, Coach Brown comes in as the new head coach. He brings with him Phil Longo as the offensive coordinator. What they did is they put the future of their program in a true freshman. All right. And as they got this into the start of the season, Sam Howell took over from the opening game last year against South Carolina. In that game, he led them to 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns to come back and beat South Carolina. So he established himself, and these numbers were very impressive as a freshman. Now look at what he's doing this year. 68% of his completions. All right, he's averaging per attempt, every time they throw the ball, 10.6 yards, which is outstanding. The yards per catch, 15.7, again, outstanding numbers. His ratio of 23 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, again, is good. If you look back at last year, he's done this before. He had 38 touchdowns last year and just 7 interceptions. I put these numbers down here. He had just an unbelievable high school career of passing for over 1,300 yards and rushing for over 3,000 yards. Now, as we go to their wide receivers, the first thing that comes up is they've got a number of them that they'll play. 5 or 6 receivers will be in, and they can all run. Again, the people who have done their broadcasts and so forth mentioned that they might have the fastest group of wide receivers in all of college football. And again, just pointing out, and then I put the numbers here, number 2, number 5, number 1. You look at their yards per catch. 18.4 yards a catch. Here's one that's got 12 catches, 22.8 yards per catch. And as you come down to the bottom of this number, they're averaging 15.6 yards every time they catch the football, which is outstanding. And as I mentioned, Coach Longo has put his confidence in the quarterback and in the wide receivers, that they're getting a lot of offense out of their running game. And again, he's one of those disciples of the air raid offense that Mike Leach started out at Washington State. Now let's take a look at the X's and O's of the North Carolina offense. Now, as we move into the X's and O's, I'm going to try to unlock the key to what they're doing, because it's something that I've not ever seen done to this total commitment to it. You've often heard this term used now, the RPO, run pass option. What Coach Longo has done is he has taken one basic play, and 80% of their offensive snaps is going to start with this action. All right. The ball is going to be snapped, and this diagram is going to get a little messed up as I go through. The ball was snapped, and what 80% of the plays are going to start with is he's going to take the ball and put it in the belly of that running back and ride it. And from there, he's going to make the decisions of what he wants to do with the ball. All right. So what we're going to see up front when we see this, and this is where I think your focus ought to be in watching this offense, what you're going to see is, let's say they're running the zone read option. So you'll see this with that play right there. If they're running another one of their plays, you might see a guard or a center pulling, and this tight end H-back coming in behind. And again, it all starts with the quarterback riding. If they're going to run some type of counter option where the ball is going to break back here, then again, everything starts with the ride. And so from a defensive standpoint, you're seeing the same part of the play every time. But then what happens if he's going to throw play action. All right. Everything that happens, you're going to see the line move. The only thing they're careful of, if they call a run pass option and it's going to be a pass, they make sure they don't get downfield. They're going to show you the initial part of the block. And then what this quarterback's going to do is a quick ride. He's going to pull off, and then he's going to go to start to throw the pass part of the run pass option. One of the first things they try to do is catch these linebackers up in the line of scrimmage. So they'll fake this run. Right? It could be a zone read, or it could be one of these guys pulling, a guard pulling or something. And then here comes a quick slant because that linebacker's reacting. Or here comes double quick slant over here because this linebacker's reacting. So again, it's something that I've not seen a total commitment to this concept. All right. And the other thing that is so important, and I found myself having a hard time, these running backs are so committed to that you look like they've got the ball every time. And the quarterback does such a great job of riding and then pulling off that I find myself thinking that he handed it off and he still had it. Or I found myself coming and he's back there faking to throw a ball. And this guy's up into the line of scrimmage. So again, everything is going to happen 8 out of 10 snaps where the ball is going to be in a ride right here. If it's a run play, then these guys are going to block the run. If it's a RPO with a pass off of it, they're going to show you the run with even guys pulling, but with the quarterback pulling the ball. And again, the running back can be on either side. This run fake could come here. The tight end could be on either side. They could have the tight end in motion. They can have wide receivers in motion, but nothing is going to affect, again, on 8 out of 10 snaps. They're going to start with that run fake right there. All right. Now, let's move ahead and start to look at some of the plays. Now, remember what I just told you about how this play starts. Now, they're going to run. They like to run powers. And if you've been with me before, you know that at the point of attack, a power means that we're going to block down and somebody's going to kick out. One thing unusual, and Notre Dame likes this look up front, they will pull their center instead of the guard. There are times when the guard will pull, but there will be the center pulling with the kick out. Again, the big tight ends at that H-back position, he would then be, there's always a kick out, and then there's somebody leading up through on the linebacker. Now, every one of these plays has a play action pass. So at the snap of the ball, here goes that quarterback, real good ride, hiding the ball. You see this guy pulling. He's allowed to do that on a pass because he's not breaking the line of scrimmage. All right. And you'll have this tight end coming across the line of scrimmage. And then if it's a play action pass, he'll stop here either to block or he can continue out and be in the pattern itself. All right. So again, play action off of this quarterback, a good fake. All right. And then he can throw any type of route. And I've got some, here, if it's a run, he's coming down blocking. He could be running some type of deep route here, and the same thing on this backside with the run pass option. Again, they like to throw quick slants, particularly early in the game, all right, because they know that those linebackers are going to be anxious to get up into the line of scrimmage on that fake to the running back. All right, now let's go to their stretch play. The stretch play is a zone dive that works to the perimeter of the defense and the perimeter of the line of scrimmage. All right. So once again, how does the play start? Quarterback gets the snap, he rides. All right. And then if it's the true run play, he hands the ball off, and then he comes back and fakes a play action pass. And the stretch play is nothing but the zone dive. And so if it's a running play, he's going to come off and block here. If it's a running play, he's going to come off and block the first thing there, and this wide receiver will block the corner. If it's a RPO, a pass off of that action, then what you're going to do is you're going to get these three people here. He's going to fake that run. This guy's going to come across. On the run, of course, he's got the ball. If it's a RPO, then he becomes a part of the pass protection group in the backfield. And you've got now three possibilities of routes, combinations out here, or he can pull that ball and come back here in some type of one-on-one coverage, particularly if you're overshifting your defense to those three receivers, then you got man coverage on the backside. But again, it all starts out. I can't emphasize enough how it starts out with that run and either the give with the play being run or pulling back off to throw the play action pass. All right. Now, you've heard me say this week after week. They establish some type of running game in one direction, the zone read option. All right. The power play. Then they have a counter that comes back off of it. So again, at the line of scrimmage now, these people are blocking the run play. All right. Again, a counter power, we're going to block down to the inside. In this particular case, I showed you the guard pulling, and he would kick out. All right. The ball would start out here is that ride that I mentioned. All right. It's a counter play. So after he takes the ball, he's going to plant that foot and come right behind that guard kicking there. If the running play is called, these three people are responsible for blocking these three guys on defense. All right. So if they've got now a play action pass, this guy comes, he's got his normal responsibility right there. Everybody stays within the legal place of the line of scrimmage. A good hard fake. Again, I've got three receivers on this side, or I've got the play action possibility back on this side. Okay. And that's basically as we move now into the load option. And again, we've seen this all year, the load read option. They've added this little thing that I mentioned last week of using this tight end to block the defensive player who's responsible for the quarterback. Again, zone read option. All right. Put the ball in, read it. He's reading the end man on the line of scrimmage. If he sits on the line, he hands the ball off and they run the zone dive. If he closes for the handoff, he pulls the ball. And on this particular play now, if it is the pull, this guy's reading him. He sees he goes there. He knows he's got to get that guy blocked. If he sits right there on the line of scrimmage, then he still tries to come up and cut off this linebacker. But then you got wide receivers responsible. If it's a running play, they're coming off and blocking the run. And then you've got the very same thing off of this play. I get the good fake. Does he hand that ball off or does he still have it in his hand? If he hands the ball off, this guy's running. If he pulls the ball, then he comes and becomes part of the pass protection. And once again, you got three receivers over here. And I just put this up. They can run any route or he can come back and get the individual one-on-one route there. And again, they are committed to that part of their offense, and they've been so very successful with it. All right, now they get behind down in distance. All right, it's second down long, third down long. They have a penalty, and they get behind down in distance. Now what they're going to do is their quarterback is going to take the ball and show you pass right now. There's no longer a read when they get away from the RPO. There's no run pass option now. This is a called pass. Everybody throws the quick screens, the bubble screens and the tunnel screens. What they do is they hand it to their running backs. You got two guys that are running for over 100 yards. Why throw the ball to a wide receiver for that play? So all they do is they take the ball. He gets quick three-step. This guy on the snap of the ball comes out here. It's just a catch and throw. These people, because the ball, again, is thrown behind the line of scrimmage, there's all those people downfield blocking. This guy just gets to make sure that that end can't get in your quarterback's face, and then everybody else is coming downfield. So again, they're putting the ball in the hands of their running backs in this particular play. Usually that's the guy that can run fast that they throw that ball to. All right. Now, let's move into, again, they're behind down in distance. Remember, they've got all those run pass options, that RPO stuff. Now, again, they're behind down in distance. They want to show you and throw the ball. One of the big plays, and they've got a lot of chunk plays, is they take a wide receiver and they run him all the way across the field into this deep third over here. And they will take this wide receiver then and try to occupy who's ever responsible for that part of the field. Again, I mentioned, I think they've got the fastest group of receivers in football. So they make a little swap here, or if the tight end's on, they can also take the tight end out and go to 10 personnel. Their base personnel is 11. So if they got 11 on the field and they want this route, they swap positions. All right. So this guy runs the clear. If he's open, all right, out here, he'll throw the ball to it. If not, they have had tremendous success with this guy coming over and finding that deep ball right there. In behind him now come different layers. So if they've got the tight end here, he'll come down and get into that 10 to 12-yard area, trying to find a spot. If those linebackers are playing zone coverage, he'll sit down here, or he'll come over and sit down here. And then they've got the deep threat coming from the backside to work off of this safety. All right. Now, late in the game against Wake Forest, when the game was still on the line, they came out and put 2 running backs on the field. Still have a wide receiver here or a tight end. They can use this guy in motion, but here's what happens now. They can run this guy on that all those plays that they have, or they can run out of the same formation. It can be coming this way. So as they establish what I talked about early with that look right there, starting the play, now to the defense, they've got the ability to do it either way. And then off of all of that come all of the play action. All right. They can fake the dive here. They can fake the dive here, have routes over this side, or have double combination routes over here. The other thing they can do is they can change the strength of the formation from here to here by simply putting this guy in motion across the field. I wouldn't be surprised to see this earlier in the game. And because what they'll want to do is they showed this last week against Wake Forest. Notre Dame will have seen it. And I think their coordinator will want to see how is Notre Dame going to line up and handle that particular look early in the game so that I can take advantage of it in my play calling. So that was an interesting way that they started. As I come to that page, it's obviously time to get back to Mike.
Thanks, Bill. Boy, I tell you, Carolina presents a lot of challenges for the Irish with their balanced attack. And it can feel overwhelming. How are we ever going to pull out a victory? But we're going to talk about that right now with keys to the game. So, Bill Reagan, let's start with you. You want to see some patience from Tommy Reese.
Well, I do, and I think that Carolina is much more vulnerable to a good running game than maybe even a good passing game. They certainly see a lot of it in the games they've played so far. And I would just like to see Notre Dame, start out really starting to hammer the run. And I probably sound like a broken record saying this because it's somewhere in my keys every week. But the running game has been so critical. And I just think they can have a lot of success if they run the ball against North Carolina. I'd like to see Kieran Williams, get close to Julius Jones' 262 all-time record for a single game.
That sounds good to me. Bill Lewis, you want to see some eye discipline from the Irish defense.
On every play on defense this week, I think it's extremely important. In every defensive meeting that I was ever a part of, like I always talked about, get your eyes in the right place, regardless of your position. Understand what you are seeing immediately before and immediately after the snap, and then react properly to what you've seen. Now, that's going to be so important. I mentioned as I was describing their offensive attack, how many times it was difficult for me in watching the tape to tell, has the quarterback, when he's riding that back, has he handed the ball off or has he pulled the ball? And then you go in the defense, are they guessing as that wide receiver comes down the field and he shows you that he's going to block you, but then he's releasing beyond. It's important that the positions on the field, wherever they are, there's a rule of having your eyes in that right place. And then I always think it's important. Understand what you're seeing and then properly react to what it is that they're doing.
Okay, Bill Reagan, the Irish, had a little bit of a setback in the bye week, losing Jarrett Patterson.
Yeah, and give Jarrett Parrison credit. I noted at the end of the game last week, he was playing and he was hobbling and not coming out of the game. Now, maybe that's not the smartest thing in the world, but and nobody mentioned him as having an injury at the end of the game. And I said, something was wrong with Patterson towards the end of that ball game. So he's out for the rest of the year, right? And I just think it's really important for the offense to get at least adequate play out of the center, whether it's Correll, Grunhard, or Lugg, whoever ends up playing there, or if all three of them play there. you can't take a drastic step back. And I really think North Carolina is going to come after the center as well in terms of blitz packages and trying to confuse him. So they need whoever's in there to play adequately.
Bill Lewis, Sam Howell's a very impressive quarterback. What do the Irish have to do against him?
Look, I'm going to put this up just very quickly to remind everybody that almost 80% of their plays start with the ball being snapped to the quarterback and him riding this running back across the formation. And then they've got 5 of their basic running plays come off. And then also the majority of their passes are play action passes with the quarterback here. He is most comfortable in the pocket. And he's, to me, I see a stronger throwing arm. I see a more accurate throwing arm where he's in that comfortable pocket. When people have forced him out of the pocket, he has, I don't think, the velocity on his throws, and I don't think he has the accuracy. Get him out of his comfort zone. Get him out on the corner where he's got to reload and make plays out there as opposed to right behind the center.
Okay, Bill Reagan, you're expecting Carolina to give some different looks to out of their blitz package.
Yeah, there's no question. And I just mentioned they're going to come after the center, and this will be one way they'll do it. They're going to try to get him looking one way and run someone right across his face the other way. And not just the center. I mean, that's their blitz package. Bateman, their secondary coach, and the guy calling the defensive signals, wants to be safe in the secondary. He wants to play basic coverages, 3 deep, 4 under, or 5 under with 2 deep. And I showed several of the blitzes in my presentation, which show someone on the line of scrimmage. He may come, he may not. He may be there as a walk-up linebacker, or he may be a position player in his 3 technique or his 5 technique. Those aren't necessarily the guys that are going to come across. So you may have a guy line up on you, but you may have someone else come from depth and blitz you to rush the quarterback. So they're going to try to confuse the offensive lineman and still only bring 4 rush people at him. And in doing so, if you get fooled, there's going to be a linebacker with great speed running at the quarterback. If not, it's going to be easy pickups, because it's still only going to be 4 guys for the majority of the time, but they're going to try to cause confusion in doing so.
Okay, Bill Lewis, again, second game in a row. The Irish secondary is going to be challenged by a vertical passing game.
Just a couple stats from Sports Source Analytics of their 8 games. I've watched their last 4 games. Sam Howell has completed 67 completions of 15 to 24 yards. He has completed 30 passes for 25 yards or more. So you've got 97 of those 107 completions for the year where that ball's being thrown downfield. And of those 25-yard or more, that's where the long touchdown passes that I showed in those stats. He's got touchdown passes for 75 and 76 yards. He's got touchdown passes of 60 yards and of 50 yards and so forth. So this is just part of their offense. They are going to throw the ball. Don't be surprised, Mike, if they come out and in their first series take 3 or 4 shots down the field. And so it's going to be so important to our secondary people, the safeties, corners, any nickels and dimes responsible for those, that they know first that the ball is going to be thrown downfield. They've got receivers with speed that can get downfield, and then they are very aggressive receivers of going for the ball. If we're competing with them, they're going to be competing back. So it's going to be an interesting matchup between the offensive passing game of the Tar Heels and the deep coverage of the Irish.
Okay, that leads me to a question I have for both of you. So Carolina's dynamic offense, arguably the best offense the Irish have faced all year. Is that putting more pressure on the Notre Dame defense or the Notre Dame offense to try to keep pace? Bill Reagan, what's your take on that?
Well, I think it's definitely going to cause more pressure on the Notre Dame defense, but a big help to that defense can be the offense, especially if they do, as I say, and kind of stick to the running game and grind it out. And I think they've done that. They've won a lot of the possession battles this year, the length of time having the ball. And that's not necessarily Coach Kelly's plan, right? But it's kind of worked out that way, and it's been in their favor. The longer the North Carolina offense sits on the sideline, the better. Keep them off the field. So I don't know if that'll be the plan, but it certainly could be a fringe benefit.
Bill Lewis, what do you think?
Shorten the game, Mike. Shorten the game. Give those people as few of opportunities as you possibly can. And the one time they were in that type of game, they lost to Florida State. When the scoring was in the 20s, they lost that game. And so they will get nervous if they don't have the ball often and have the opportunity to do what they've done in their last 4 or 5 games. So let's shorten the game and have some fun watching our offense out on the field and watch all those offensive guys over on the other sideline getting nervous that they're not out there long enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds like a recipe for an Irish victory. We're going to check in on these keys to the game next Tuesday. We hope you can join us as we review these keys, hopefully after Irish win number 9. But until then, for Bill and Bill, we wish you and your family a happy and safe Thanksgiving. And we look forward to seeing you again on Chalk Talk with Bill and Bill.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe.
Happy Thanksgiving. Stay safe.